seating table 110 with Costa Ronin.
Welcome to the chaos.
So let's get into this. What up, everybody? Welcome to the chaos, and we're excited today because we got a very special guest showing us a different point of view, because we haven't had anybody on yet in the security side of things to tell it from that standpoint. And the man sitting across from me has helped me to not get beat up in several situations. One of the kindest people I know, but a great guy. You've probably, if he hasn't bounced you out of a club, you've seen him on Homeland. You've seen him on The Americans. You've probably seen him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I'm so grateful to call this man a friend and just watch his growth and his journey. And I can't wait for everybody to hear about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Costa Ronin.
What's up, guys? How are you? Great to be here.
Welcome to the show, Coast. It's been a long time. I'm excited to hear your story and reminisce about some.
It has indeed, yeah.
So you were just touching on about how, you know, we all come here and we need a job to kind of get us through till we could do what we want to do. So what was your start in this LA nightlife type of situation? And how did you get to LA? Like, how did your whole story kind of come about? Give us a little bit of a backstory.
Well, I lived in Australia, and I, as an actor, just finished a film there that was very successful. But then there was a lull, and there was no work, and kind of just ideas floating around. So I had time, and I decided to come to LA because I've never been. And I basically never left.
Yeah.
That was 12 years ago. The reality was that I really wanted to come check it out. And, you know, as an artist, you travel the world, and you are in places where you feel like you're a black sheep, because people around you kind of like, you're an actor, okay, but what do you really do? You come to LA, and especially back then, it's kind of unfortunately changing now, but back then you walk into any coffee shop, any store, and you see people having discussions about projects. They're writing stories, they're having production meetings, short form, long form, they're putting up plays. People were really breathing art, and I felt like for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a place where I belong. This is my tribe, you know.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then I met this guy, Zvanimir Hayes, who was working for SB in those days. And I met him at a party, and he was a stuntman as well. And so we got talking about the films and about stunt world. And that's kind of, we started talking, and I helped him cut his demo reel, and we started talking more. And I was like, hey, you know, I'm staying. What do you do for work? How does it all work here? And then back then, the very first night in LA, I spent in this hotel, actually 2 nights. I think it's at the Hollywood Hotel or Hotel Hollywood. It's right across the road from Colony.
Yeah.
And back then, Colony was the place, right? I can't remember. I mean, I didn't know if there were any other places, but Colony was the place. And I saw all these limos pulling up and all these people, and you know, the things that you see on TV. And that was just fascinating to me, because I had no idea about that world. I didn't know how it worked. Now I have a fairly good idea of how it worked. But back then, that was the beginning. And you know, through Z, I met Yorgos, and I met Mikey DeLuca, who is still a very, very dear friend. Probably the best friend I have. And
Shout out to Luca, man.
Love that.
Yeah. And you know, there's some of the friendships they lost. You know, it's like you guys. Look at, you know, all these years later, you guys are like best friends now.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but back then, that was all new to me, and I had a very extensive experience in security and nightlife from Australia, because where I came in and what I knew was strategic security. So I was one of the guys. I worked for a company, and there was a number of us. We were flown basically around the country to set up events. Like EDC here, there would be like Sunshine People or Big Day Out, things like that. So we'd fly around Australia and set them up from bump in to bump out, and obviously running the days. And I was one of those guys. So my understanding of strategic security was great. I saw big events. I knew how they operated. I knew what needed to happen, and in terms of the crowd control, in terms of different arrangements and so on. But coming here and sort of immersing myself in nightlife was very different. So I had to adjust from like 100,000 people to 20 people and how to treat them, and this whole white glove iron fist kind of a situation. So that was the beginning, and then through Jorgis and Mikey, I got hired. And sorry, it's a very long story, but I got hired on the day when Sayers was opening, and I remember standing there with a whole bunch of new security hosts, and then Mio came out, and he was running around opening the club, and he came out and he did his short speech, and basically everybody's welcome. you know? That was it. And my first club was Colony, and then I got assigned. Eden was opening, and basically I was the part of the opening team for Eden, and then then a few other clubs.
I met Costa when we opened Create.
Okay.
He was the lead security at Create, and I still tell you, this is my ego days where I would run around and just be a little much. But, this man, I remember one time we had this thing where if we run a big presentation, we had this big ladder, and we used to push it around the club, and I was not having a good night, and I think I ran somebody over with the ladder. They wouldn't get out of my way, and I pushed them through it, and the next day I got called into the office, and this happened frequently, and I just be like, whatever. But when I saw him sitting there, I'm like, I better check my shit right now, because I'm definitely in trouble. And I was in trouble for running somebody. I ran over somebody's foot. He had to fill out a whole fucking complaint form.
Oh man.
Create was a beast.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Never forget that.
Create was a beast. Yeah. The work that put into it was probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from our perspective, definitely the security perspective, it was a club like LA. I mean, maybe Avalon would compare to it, but it definitely doesn't compare to anything else as we ever owned or had experience with. We really had to start from scratch and figure out how to run this thing, and how to figure out the service aspect of it, and the crowd aspect of it, and the management aspect of it. It was a beast.
It's a huge operation.
What was the biggest challenge for you when you started working nightlife? Besides, let's take Create out of it, but like the people that you were dealing with and the personalities and the culture here.
That was a lot harder than anywhere else, because I guess nothing was what it seemed. It took a long time to get used to the backstabbing and people not being truthful in their intentions, in what they say to you, to your face. Then they, you turn around and they say something completely different behind your back. The element of, these are the rules, but that's not how we run things.
Yeah, exactly.
That was very difficult to kind of understand coming as an outsider. I feel it helped me a lot coming as an outsider, because I wasn't attached to those rules. I had my own understanding of how things needed to be run, and that's what helped me at Create. But that was very, very different to the SBE culture. It was very difficult for me to accept and understand how there are three departments. There's the service. I mean, as far as part-time workers, right? We're not talking about the management, but the part-time workers, we have the service, we have TSAs, and we have security, and then you have the bars and the bar managers and the bar backs, right? But on the service aspect of it, the service, the TSAs, and the security, and then where the service and the TSAs are making money, and then security is walking away with like $15 an hour, and that was mind-boggling to me. That I could not understand it, I could not accept it. I still don't. I did what in my time there, I did what I could to sort of change that a little bit, but ultimately that was the hardest thing. I still don't understand how nightlife entities could run like that. Whereas, the only reason service and the TSAs can do their job because of security, and then the service break off the TSAs, but nobody breaks off the security. So
there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money being thrown around.
Right. But here's the thing, like I remember when we worked at Greystone, you would have, you guys were working there. You know what I'm talking about. It was the #1 club in LA. Our Sunday night was second to Heat in Miami, right? It was the biggest night in the country. So you guys were, were making a lot of money. Service were making
stupid money.
Right, you did, but service were making even more, and we didn't. So what happens is, I remember we were closing and we were sitting there and we were talking about something else unrelated, and then you guys were sitting around there and waiting to be clocked out, and sort of punch in all your tapes, and we were just blown away, because we know on our side, this is kind of what we make, and on your side, it's a completely different world. So the discrepancy was just stupid.
Yeah.
And so that was very difficult for me to accept. I guess I have a very sort of acute sense of justice, if you will, and that to me was absolutely unacceptable and still isn't. And then obviously it creates a whole bunch of problems because then security has to come out and make money. And that's when clubs got compromised. And basically a lot of the time, I'm sure clubs got, shut down for shootings or whatever else. That was one of the reasons. Our clubs didn't get shut down, right? But others did. And we all know the problems that existed in nightlives. And a lot of the time, those problems existed because of that unfair treatment. And so that kind of, I don't know if it's going to change after the sort of the reopening, but that's just how things were run.
I never thought of it that way.
Me neither. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I didn't know that you guys made $15 an hour.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
And to work an hour in a nightclub for $15, while we're making like $100 an hour, that's insane. And but also,
and you're dealing with the hard shit,
right? I remember seeing certain security guards, not our like normal staff, but like some people would come in as a one-off and they would be hustling the buyers, and we would get mad like, what is this security guy doing? Like you wouldn't let me to my table, you wouldn't let me do my job. But I understand that you're just also trying to hustle because you're not making anything compared to what we're doing.
But the thing is that we couldn't hustle.
Right.
So you have to hustle without hustling. Like you guys are part of the ambience, part of the experience. We are only kind of important when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And then everybody relies on security. So in a place like Create, it was more evident because there's, you have like 3,000 people, you have 35 security guys working for you, and it's a full operation.
Yep.
So there, the presence is more evident. You can't get with your ladder anywhere unless you have
security.
Somebody like DeMarcus with a flashlight. You can't get anywhere unless there's somebody like Brian Binkley, trying to sort of shuffle the tables. So that was more evident, and still nothing was changed. And I guess it's just so sort of such a deep part of the culture.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, okay, well, we have to attract these guys because they're making money, whereas security is only costing money. Well, what the smart manager should have understood is that you're not going to make any money unless you get the right security. And a lot of the clubs, basically, as you guys know, folded in LA because security just wasn't up to par.
Right.
The reason Create was the best club in LA is because all the elements worked. All of them. And, I mean, as far as I remember, that's why we had people like Tiesto, Cascade. We had the biggest New Year's Eves. Everybody who is anybody played there. Mm-hmm. And that's why, because it was safe. It was the safest club in LA. We didn't have any
problems.
We had problems, but we
had
didn't have any
internal problems.
We didn't have any problems that were problems in other clubs.
Correct.
Because you always hear like people coming in with guns and weapons, and like SB. I mean that shit wouldn't fly.
Yeah,
we didn't have that. Yeah.
Every now and then somebody would get in, but immediately they're even if they were with a celebrity, they were like, "You're out of here, man. Like you're not allowed back in here ever."
Right. So it's unfortunate that that element of the operation wasn't appreciated.
So let me ask you this then. So a big thing on this show that we talk about is the mental toll that has taken. So was that a driving factor into you really pushing forth in the acting career to get out of nightlife?
No, because nightlife was never the it for me. Nightlife was just a job. I got good at it, but it was just a job. I always had my focus on the dot on the horizon and where I was going. It's like almost like living two lives at the same time. You have your job, your nightlife, and this is kind of, this is your circle, this is what you do, this is what you get paid for, but you got to remember why you're doing it. Yeah. I feel like in this town, a lot of the people forget why they come here. It's just so easy to come. We kind of briefly touched on it before this session, but people come here to make it as an artist. They feel the calling. They come here to be an actor, a director, a writer, musician, whatever. And then they find a side gig, and the side gig basically takes over because of the money. And you feel like, okay, another year, and then it's too late. then you forget what your dream is. You forget, Mikey, you and I spoke about it so many times last year, you know? You forget what your dream is. You forget why you came here. And fortunately for me, I didn't. And it was very, very hard. I had to very much keep it separate. I had to remember that it's a job. It's what I do. It's not who I am. An artist is who I am. Nightlife is what I do. And that's why when it came to Crunch, and I was shooting in New York, and I was basically put in front of a choice, nightlife or, going back to acting. I just looked at the guy who shall remain nameless, and I'm like, are you serious? It's not really a serious choice. So it's just like, see you later.
Right.
So this is not really.
But that's such great advice to give, because so many people in this nightlife scene lose themselves because of the money, because of what's going on, because of the atmosphere. But you're living proof that keep your eye on the prize, keep your head down, keep working, and man, I can't wait to get into your acting career, because you're an incredible actor, and you've done some amazing, iconic roles and parts, and on some iconic shows and movies, and not many people get to that point. But I think a lot of what we're seeing with people who haven't got there is they didn't know how to separate the two.
Right.
They got lost, and the acting and the job became one.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing here.
Well, I remember talking to Chris Parisi, who you guys also know and love, and I asked him, because remember when SLS happened, right? Mm-hmm. And then
in Vegas.
Yeah. And Chris came to create from Vegas, and I remember we were having this conversation, because Vegas is a complete different. It's a completely different beast for me, right? You go in, you get out, and then you lick your wounds for a week. How to live and work there was a mystery to me. So I came to him and I said, listen, how did you do it? He did it for a number of years, and he said the only way you can do it is by remembering that it's a job. For all these people who are coming in, they're partying tonight, they're not going to remember this tomorrow, and then they go back to their realities on Monday. For you got to do it tomorrow and the day after and the day after. So if you forget that it's a job and start treating it as something else, you're done. You're done. There's not only there's no future for you, you're just done. You're going to burn out in less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And
to
many
me.
do. As you guys know, I'm sure you have friends who went and started that casino, and then basically, where are they?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even have to go to Vegas to lose myself, because I was treating my job as a career. Everything revolved around how the club was operating. And, when I got promoted to a lead and then to a bar manager, I was more worried about if I had enough liquor for the night than if I had an audition for that week. And slowly but surely, I started worrying, like you said, I worried more about my job and not my creative side.
Yeah.
And then I started losing myself as a person. Because that's not who I was. I'm not, I did bartend. I was a great bartender. I was great at that, but I wasn't doing anything creative, feeding my soul, really.
But it is, you really have to kind of keep it separate, because it's, there were so many times when I would be working the night, and then I have to be on set at 5 or 6 in the morning, and you don't sleep, and so you work, and then you come home, you have a shower, get changed, and you go to work, and then you try to survive the day, basically, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do,
Yeah.
You guys talk on this podcast, you talk a lot about the business ethics and the work ethics, which you guys, I have known you personally for many years, so I know you guys both have it. But it's one of those things, if you have business acumen and business ethics as far as the bar work goes, you will have it everywhere else. You just got to remember that if you're here as an actor, you got to be you got to remember your business ethics as a bartender, as an actor, as a director, as a writer. You just have to juggle more balls in the air,
I think we get, we talk a lot about getting blinded by the money. When we're making that much money as a bartender, TSA or whatever, you feel like you have to focus more on that. As, you look at the acting side of it, there's no money coming in.
Nope.
So you're like, let's say you get an audition, you're kind of looking at it, but you're looking at your phone and you're not your work ethic isn't 100% there because it's not.
There's no money.
There's no money coming in.
I don't look at it as a job yet.
Yeah,
Like-
and that's where we fail. A
Yeah.
lot of people fail. Is like you're looking for that quick.
Well, a big mental fuck of it too, and like this is where I get a little frustrated with some of these nightlife companies because they want you to be loyal. They want you to be very loyal to them, but they remind you every fucking shift that there is 100 people that want your job. There is 100 people that'll show up here in a heartbeat if you walk away. Like, so what the fuck kind of loyalty is that? But then it would fuck me up in the head where it's like I should call out of work tonight because I got a big audition tomorrow. And there's plenty of times, and then I would try to call somebody like, hey, man, are you cutting? No, we got a big night. You got to be here. Actually, you got to be here early. And then I'd be like, fuck, like, okay, well, if I don't go, you're going to replace me because you keep telling me so many other people want my job. And I need it to fucking live and make money, so I feel like I'm pigeonholed. So like, all right, I'll be in there, and then I bomb the audition the next fucking day.
Well, you just got to remember that why are you here? That question has to be on the back of your mind all the time. Why are you here? All right? If you bomb the audition, what's the worst thing that can happen? And also, what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't come, if you pull out from that very busy night? Yeah, sure, they can. There's probably like a handful of guys who can do what you do. Maybe not. But even if you lose that spot, even if somebody else comes in and takes your job, what's the worst thing that can happen?
You find another one.
You will have more time to audition.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You cannot lose. If you remember why you're here, you cannot lose.
Can't lose.
And you never know. Let's say you wouldn't have gone to work that night. You would have been prepared and fresh for the.
You would have
and then you were changed.
Exactly.
that audition.
And we
never
would
know.
be doing
I
a
wouldn't be
very
sitting
different
here right now.
podcast right now.
I had some big auditions that this man has helped me got that I've definitely been like, fuck, man, I didn't like, but I beat myself up, and I know you do that too, where it's like constant times I would always go in there and be like, I should have did this better. I should have did that better. And we would always second guess ourselves. And like,
I would always say I shouldn't have drank last night.
that's one too. Or I
Because
should
I
have
had a
taken,
problem with that. Like
I shouldn't have taken the shot before I came to this audition.
Yeah.
That was a big
being
one, too.
hungover at auditions, I've ruined many chances.
So let's transition a little bit. So now you start booking a lot bigger things.
Right.
So how are you able to juggle? Because you were still doing the Americans while you were doing nightlife with us.
Yeah.
Like I remember talking to you how it set today, and you were telling me like all your scenes and shit. So you're operating on a network show, which is a hit show at that point, and then you're still coming to the nightclub. Like that was fucking impressive at that point. I'm like, yo, why don't you just quit? Like you don't fucking need this anymore. So what was that transition like for you, and how were you able to juggle that?
Give us a timeline too,
Yeah.
because I personally wasn't there, and I didn't know you were an actor. Like when we were working together in the nightclub, so I want to know when that all started. Like when you got like a bigger break.
I don't think anybody knew until until people started to recognize me.
Yeah.
A little bit more. It was very hard to get used to the fact that you're throwing somebody out of the club and they got their hands and got them in a neck lock and they're like, aren't you that guy from the thing?
Yeah.
It's really trippy to be recognized by the guy you're kicking out of the nightclub. But
Like I'm doing research for the role.
So yeah, that was very interesting. But it took time. It's one of those things. Like I was saying, for me the saving grace was keeping them separate. I had to, when I was at work, I was there. I was the head of security there, so I was there, the first guy. I was responsible for over 30 guys working for me, and 3,000 people. Basically anything happens in the club, you go to the head of security. The police comes in, it's head of security. So it's basically, you remember how, at some point I had to bring in AK to kind of, I had to be sort of more in the management position and he had to be more on sort of operational position because there was no way of running that beast any other way, And so as far as the timeline goes, the Americans happened, I think, 2 years after I came here. And that happened probably just over a year maybe, or I can't remember now. Maybe just over a year after I started, or like a few months after I started. Because I started with SB in June or July, and then the Americans happened in September. So that was, it. And so yeah, I had to, because also that was being shot in New York, and so I had to, fly to New York during the week and then come back here for the weekend and then fly back again and fly. It was a lot of flying.
That's a lot.
Dude, that's
It was a lot of
amazing that
flying.
like you could separate your lives. Like you really were leading a double life.
Yeah.
Because anybody else in your position would have been like, oh yeah, I just got back from set. You know, like people would like
None of us, yeah.
People would like to talk about what they were doing creatively at work.
Yeah.
And
I
you
saw
were just
that.
like in the corner, like
Laughing.
That actually, I had a few moments like that, especially, you know, working in clubs where the service and the TSAs were actors. There were moments when I know I just flew in from a show, doing a show, and I overheard conversations about, you know, doing scenes and classes and things like that. And it was very cool. You know, I had to bite my tongue a few times joining the conversation, you know, not to say anything else, but I you know, I love talking art. I love talking filmmaking. I love talking scripts and stories. That this is what I breathe, you know. And so pulling myself back and not joining those conversations and not talking about it was difficult. But I knew I had to do that because I needed to be taken seriously and as an authority in what I did as a security person. And so if I joined those conversations and I sort of mixed the two, it would have been a very different approach. I would not be able to say yes, no when I had to. If you know, if I was sort of bonding with people as an actor rather than as a head of security. So I had to really sort of segregate those two.
So let me ask you, because as head of security, let's say you're playing the role of security, you're not breaking. What I'm hearing is you never broke that character. Now, does that translate also when you're on set, like as your character? Do you never break character on set?
I hope no. Well, I mean, you know, of course, between takes, I'm not gonna stay in character unless it's sort of required to do.
You're not method. He's not method.
Right. No, I am very much method, but it's harder on the TV series than it is on film. You know, so say for example, like earlier this year, I did a film called ISS. It's about an International Space Station. We filmed in North Carolina. There's only 6 actors, right? The set was amazing, incredible. All the details, everything, right? So, because there's 6 actors, and the idea is that the 6 actors are the 6 astronauts up in space, right? So we are supposed to be in this enclosure, basically, for the whole time of the story. And there I withdrew myself from everybody. I did not hang out and socialize with anybody on set. The reason being is because if I play somebody who is supposed to be alone and by himself and, you know, doing what he's supposed to do, I'm not gonna hang out there, break, you know, after the scene, go out and tell jokes at the water cooler. That's not what I'm there for. After the show, yes, absolutely. Before the show, yes, absolutely. But this is what I'm there for. So, yes, I guess to a degree, there are times to break the character and there are times not to break the character.
Yeah.
Whatever serves the purpose.
Right.
You know? Whatever helps the job.
Yeah, and as far, you know, I was also asking not as far as like a character that you're playing, but just like the person that you are, the type of person that you are. Like you're on set, you're not, the security stuff is just miles, you know, when you're being
yes and
creative
no,
side.
dude. Yes and no, because of course you bring work home.
Yeah.
Especially Create was open,
4 nights
like
a week?
4 nights a week. And, you know, you have to do the rostering, you have to deal with the incident reports, you have to deal with a lot of things that you have to deal with. You know, there's a big wash from the weekend that you have to deal with. DeLuca and I, we used to meet literally the following day after the weekend at this sushi joint, or ramen place on Sunset and North Alta Vista, and debrief. We couldn't talk anywhere else. We couldn't talk at work. We had to meet outside of hours and have ramen every single week, and figure out what are we doing, where are we going, how to do things better, what's not working. You know, so it's.
I know that place where it was right by his house, right?
Yeah. Well, we used to live in. I used to live there too. We used to
live in that building?
I lived
right, the
around
building
the corner
next
on
to it.
Poinsettia, yeah.
No, on North Alta Vista.
No, I'm saying, but I lived around the corner on Poinsettia.
Yeah.
I know the ramen spot you're talking about, yeah.
So it's literally like Roma and I used to live in one building, and then Mikey and Vinny used to live in the building next to us. So.
Oh yeah, I blacked out in that building many times.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that was. That was it, man.
That's awesome. So I got a question for you because I haven't got to ask you this question yet since we haven't. What was Tarantino like?
Everything you think and more.
Really?
The dude is incredible. It's if you can think of what would somebody who is the utmost authority on filmmaking be, and you try to imagine that person, you close your eyes and you sort of meditate on it and you try to imagine that person, that's the person. I mean, the guy can quote a 1965 Vietnamese film in character. You know, he knows everything there is to know. Surprisingly, though, he's very, very open to discussions on the characters and the process. Usually what happens is with the writer-director, because they spend so many years writing the material, they're so attached to it. And you say like one word wrong and or off or somewhere else, or you want to have a conversation about the character or the arc or whatever, they're kind of closed off because they're like, listen, I know the best. I spent 5 years writing this thing. Just, you know, just go and do you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Quentin was very, very open. He was very open to discussing the character, and even though, like, I don't know if you guys seen the film, I'm there for like literally you blink and you miss, but it's one of those things where it doesn't matter if you're in his film, you're already a star, I guess.
Amazing, yeah.
You know, so it's everybody in that film. Everybody's in that film is somebody. It was an incredible list of actors, you know, and so to have this conversation with somebody like Quentin, you know, when you come up and you have a conversation about the character and the arc and, you know, where they're going, anybody else would be like, dude, you're there for 5 seconds. Just be there and let's move on. I've got other things to worry about. He wasn't like that at all. You know, he took the time to talk about everything I wanted to talk about and the backstory. And, you know, the scene in El Coyote, you know, that was an incredible masterclass. You know, he was just like, he came up with this story and he came up to us. And I think Emil had this like big monologue or something else. I can't remember how it was written, but he came up and he said, he told us basically this story. And then he goes to Emil, is like, now tell the story in your own words. And that's the scene. You know, so the camera, it doesn't matter that the camera is going on Margot. It's like, this is the vibe of the story. So he just thinks of all those things on the fly and creates, you know, and also at the same time feeds from the people he's working with. It's really quite remarkable. It's really quite a remarkable process. And, you know, for someone who grew up on his films, and I have so much respect for the fact that he basically paved his own way into Hollywood. He created his own, he opened his own door. Like he didn't follow anybody. He created his own path. And after all these years, he continues to make his own films his own way. Mm-hmm. He did not become one of the Hollywood directors. He's still Quentin. We're still waiting for his films because we know they're going to be Quentin films. They're not going to be just another film from a big director. And being a part of that was an honor, man. Absolutely.
So let's backtrack on how did you get that? What was the audition process like? Was it a role offered? Was it?
I didn't audition. It was offered. Yeah.
Nice.
They his people. Oh, I got a call from my manager, and she said Quentin's people reached out and they just wanted to work. They saw my work on Homeland, and they just wanted to work together. So, I'm like,
that's got to be an amazing call to get.
I'm like, are you okay?
Yo, that's the dream. Like, if you're an up-and-coming actor, it's Scorsese and Tarantino. And if you're in that movie, yo, I made it.
Yeah.
And, like, just the fact to even get the idea to be able to audition to that, it's like, oh, my God. And you just got a call, like, hey, like, bro. That would be I'd call my mom and be like, yo, Mom, I made it. Like, that's...
When you get that, like, oh, they made an offer, I don't have to audition? That's...
For a fucking Quentin Tarantino film with DiCaprio and Brad... What?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Man.
But you know, it's like that book, the Matthew McConaughey book. We talked about the green light.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite really remarkable. If you when you every now and then you get those moments in your life that, for lack of a better comparison, like green lights in Matthew's book, right? Which tell you that you're on the right path. You know, every now and then, life kind of throws in a curveball. It's like, here, this is what you always wanted, but then there's this. You know, there's like there's this role that's not gonna pay anything, or there's you can go and do this and make a lot of money. What do you prefer? And you always have to kind of remember where the bearings lie, And every now and then, life kind of goes, you made the right choice, you're on the right track. And that was one of those moments when you get a call from somebody like Quentin's team, and that's when you know that you're on the right path. Like somebody from that team saw your work, understood what you do and what value you can bring to the project that's already started. And they want to, and so you understand, you just want to kind of like, you're on the right path and what you're doing is right. And you just kind of want to keep working and keep going at it.
So what was that feel? I mean, what did you feel? What did you say to yourself? I know you just explained that you're on the right path, but was that like a next level for you that when you got that call?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I didn't know what the film was going to be about. Very few people read the script. I didn't get the script. I had to go and then, sleep by the door at the production office to basically get the script. And I did, and I read it a bunch of times. And it was one of those things where this is exactly it. It's like you think when you're removed from that situation, it's a massive milestone event. When you are in that situation, it's like any other day in your life. It's really crazy. We think about those people in our lives like unreachable stars, of great magnitude. But when you are with them in the room, you realize that it's exactly the same as us sitting around here right now.
They're people.
People who want to know about you exactly how you want to know about them. It's crazy.
Wow, yeah.
You got to remember that. It's like the fact that you are there means that they saw something in you. You are there to solve one of their problems. You are the guy who they believe is going to breathe life into the character they created. Doesn't matter how big or small. And that's how it is, and that's what you remember. That's
amazing to hear for especially for someone who, let's say it's their first role and they're intimidated. They're like, I don't belong here. It's like, no, you do belong here. You belong because just what you said, just open my eyes. Like, oh, okay, yeah, they chose me for a reason.
I remember I did this show called Agent X a number of years ago with Sharon Stone, and I remember I got the call sheet, and I'm looking at this call sheet, and it's Sharon Stone. We all kind of grew up knowing who she was. She's an icon. She's a legend, and at that stage, she was the biggest actor I was ever to work with. And I'm looking at the call sheet, and I'm like, that's Sharon Stone. That's me. And, because I haven't met her at that stage, right? And I'm like, I remember I had this question in my mind. I was sitting there thinking, how do I address her? Like, do I say Miss Stone? Is she Mrs. Stone? Like, what do I say? And then on the day, we're in the makeup trailer, and the door opens up, and I'm sitting in the chair, and the door opens up, and she comes up to me, like, gives me the hug, and she's like, hi, I'm Sharon. I'm like, whoa, that's my answer. Right there. Like, hi, I'm Costa, how you going? And then that was it. So all this time, I spent thinking whether or not I should call her Miss Stone was absolutely idiotic. She was more interested, and we spent a lot of time together working on it, and we talked about traveling, we talked about the family, we talked about so many different things. And in the moment, you don't think that it's a legendary actress who is there with you. At the moment, you are thinking it's another human being, it's another person with the same worries, with the same... Yes, they are on a different level, of course, but they are the same. In a nutshell, we all want the same thing. And so when you bypass that sort of like, okay, well, somebody's here and somebody's here, you understand that it's all on the same level. And if universe brings you together into the same room, it doesn't matter if somebody is an award-winning director or an award-winning actor or somebody who's just coming out of a film school. It does not matter. There's a reason for these people to be in the same room together.
What a day, man.
Jesus.
It's just hearing so many affirmations or like good things that are helping.
Because we were just, as most people know, we film a couple throughout the day, and the person we had on before you, Link, was telling us a lot of great stories. And for us sitting here really trying to take this next step of our lives and doing this podcast to inspire people and help people, just, man, everything you're saying is going to touch our listeners. But it gives me goosebumps because, like, yo, man, this is so much I'm learning, and to see somebody who I consider such a dear friend doing so well, it gives me hope and inspires me, and I'm like, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so fucking happy for you and everything you're doing, man. It's so great to know how I met you when you were just the security guy.
Right, because you have to believe in everything is possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we were working in nightclubs for years. I didn't know you were an actor. Like, I was an actor, quote unquote. I wasn't doing shit.
I think I was the only one of the few people at Crete that actually knew, because you came up to me and I was talking acting stuff, and you kind of gave me some coaching tips. And like when I was still trying to do the acting thing for a while, he was my biggest advocate. He would call me, check up with me. He put me into a couple of classes, and I was so I'm like, yo, somebody's actually taking interest in me who's doing something well. Like, this is great. I was so fucking thankful for that.
No, of course,
and like
man.
it meant so much to me and kept me going.
Right.
Granted, I went in a different path, but I believe in destiny, and I believe I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing now. But there's so much I learned from those acting classes, so much I learned from those conversations that me and you would just get together for lunch and have, and so much as life lessons that you gave me and giving us right now. You know, it's fucking
Yeah, one thing we talked about with Link about is you can't give up. Like, if it's what you really want to do, it doesn't matter how long it takes. You just can't quit, right? Would you say that's a fair statement?
You have to absolutely know what's making you happy and why are we here. You know, if this is the only thing that's making you happy, then keep going. Keep going. You have to understand your own value and what you're bringing. You know, a lot of people come to LA with the thought of, what can we get? What can we take? What they should be thinking about is, what can they give? And when that mentality changes, when they stop thinking about, how can I get a piece of this pie? How can I get into this industry? How can I get? But start thinking, what can I give to this industry? What doesn't it have? Why does it need me? And when they give that, that's when they start going places. Because, you know, if they... You will come up. You will come up. You know what I mean? You will come up. People are watching your work.
Yeah.
You know, they are watching your character. They are watching you grow. Every single acting class you take, every single voice class, or every single dance class you take. How are you talking to the people at work? You never know who is anybody. I mean, one of your buddies just wrote and directed the script. Did you know 10 years ago he would do that? Probably not.
Right. No. And he told me it was literally one of the first meetings him and I had. He was like, I like this dude.
Right.
And you never know how you know, some person's going to affect your life later on in life, right?
Right. But the thing is, like, bad, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are nice to your face, but then as soon as you turn around, they backstab you. And that character, you know, this is when your character comes out. You know, the character comes out when nobody's watching, right? So if you're like nice to that person, big smile and like bubbly personality, and then, you know, the person turns around and you're being an asshole, people will know. So you can only hide it for so long.
Right.
You know, sooner or later, your assholeness will come out.
Right.
And, you know, it's going to be a rude awakening.
Absolutely, man. My mind is blown today.
Yeah, but in like the best way possible.
No, good.
Yeah,
good. It was a lot of fun hanging out and
well, your story about the pie and like giving and getting and
yeah,
you're right, man. Like when I hate to bring it back to myself, but when I found out that after my accident, I was able to help people, things just started changing. And when I started helping people more and more, my acting got better and more doors started opening. And I didn't know that those things were, you know, correlated. They would come together because I was giving parts of myself, and I guess the life in the world was giving back to me. So that's amazing that you said that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Well, if you think about it, also, it's like, you know, if you want to take something, you can only take what's given. If you want to give something, you can give a lot more.
Right.
So that's all I can say about that. You know, if it's like anywhere else. Right now, you guys doing this podcast is incredible. You're reaching out to a lot of people. You're reaching out to a lot of hearts and a lot of minds. And you are doing it out of the goodness of your own heart. You know, you're not doing it because somebody came to you and said, hey, here's a suitcase full of cash, do this. No. You are doing it on your own back. You decided to create this studio, and sit around here and invite people and talk about how to make this world a better place. And this is what's beautiful about it, and this is why it's taking off, and this is why there's so many people reaching out to you and listening to you. It's because you guys are doing it not to get something out of it, but to give.
help.
You are giving yourselves, all three of you, you are giving yourselves with every single podcast that you do. You're opening up your hearts, you're opening up your minds, you're being frank with all your stories. Being vulnerable takes balls, and you guys have them. So congratulations on setting it up and for making it happen. And I wish you all the very, very, very best from the bottom of my heart. I hope it just keeps on growing and more people listen to it.
Man, that's amazing.
We appreciate that.
That was great. Thank you for that.
I think that's what we learned. Costa, I learned more things about you, and like I said, you're one of my dear friends, and things about you I didn't know, and we've learned things about every single person that has sat in that hot seat. And everybody we've talked to has been like, "Yo, man, that story really touched me." And that's what we want, because we all dealt with this really tough time in this nightlife aspect, but it brought together some amazing people.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that when we worked together, we were always together, but we never communicated. And that's what we talked about, is if we would have just told people how we were feeling at the time, we wouldn't have been, because we went through bouts of depression and loneliness, but we never told anyone. We had like that facade that we're having fun at work and everything is great, we're making money, but in the inside we were suffering. And that's the biggest point of this podcast, is to help people communicate and say how they're feeling.
Nobody knew. The first festival I ever did, I got 2 comp tickets. I went to him and Mike DeLuca.
Nice.
And they came, and he's like, "Yo, man, I'm so proud of you." But he didn't know that in my head, I'm like, I'm having a breakdown right now. I don't know what the fuck to do. I can't do this.
Right.
But just having somebody to come and like show you support. But it's like, you're right. If I would have been like, "Yo, Costa, man, I'm having a really hard time," you probably would have pulled me aside and been like, "Yo," and talked me through everything I was going through. But we didn't have the wherewithal, because we didn't want to be vulnerable back then, because we were afraid of it.
Exactly.
It's hard, but it's also vulnerable with yourself.
Yes.
What I think one of the most incredible messages of this podcast is for the audience to understand that they're not alone. They're not by themselves. There's a lot of people who went through exactly the same shit they're going through at different phases of their lives, different age. If you back in the day, there was this great program called Inside the Actors Studio. I grew up on it. I watched all of it back then on DVDs. I still have some DVDs at home. But the point is that you watch that and you understand you understand what people's lives are like and what they had to go through. You listen to Matthew's book, for example, and what he had to go through, and you understand. Hell, you're not all this incredible statue that with no flaws. You went through exactly the same problems I went through. You exactly the same fears that I had. So, in fact, you are still dealing with exactly the same fears I am dealing with right now. And you just hope that the people who listen, they sort of appreciate it and also understand that it's okay. The bravest thing you can do is to ask for help, and the best thing you can do is to ask for help. You just got to be able to ask for help from yourself first. That's where you got to start, And if you can't ask for help from yourself, you can't ask for help from anybody. So learn to communicate with yourself first. Become self-aware, understand your own problems first, and then reach out to somebody. You couldn't talk to anybody because you couldn't talk to yourself. As soon as you started talking to yourself, then you started talking to other people, right? That's when you and I started talking. Then Danny came in. You guys were talking. So that's kind of how it works. But it could not start. It could not happen until you became self-aware and until you started to talk to yourself.
Yep.
This man Costa is dropping so many knowledge bombs on people throughout this episode.
Great knowledge.
This seems like a nice place to take a break.
Oh man, I don't even want to.
We're gonna have to charge you for this one.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to charge you for this.
I'm glad.
I don't
man,
even
I'm
want
glad.
to end this, but our favorite way to end this, to end the podcast, is usually with one of your favorite stories. It could be from nightlife, or since we did touch so much on the acting side, from one of your favorite acting roles. Something funny, great, feel good.
Oh man, that's tough. You should have asked that question at the beginning of the podcast.
That's why we ended on it.
It's. I think the most incredible thing about anything that we do in life, and If somebody listens to this and decides it's too corny, whatever, I don't care. But the most important thing to me personally is the people. Whether you are in nightlife, it's the people you work with, good and bad. Whether you're acting, directing, in music industry, podcast, whatever, is the people you're with. You know, because at the end of the day, if somebody gives you time, that's the best gift anybody can give you, because that's the one thing they cannot take back, right? So if you sit down with somebody, if somebody's having a conversation with you, or a meal with you, or a podcast with you, this time they cannot take back. This is the time they spent with you. And so wherever you guys are listening to this thing, just look around and see the people that you're with at work, at home, at school, in your acting class, and understand that this is the time to spend with those people. These people with you in this room for a reason. So learn to learn from them and learn to understand them. And hopefully through that process, you will better understand yourself. That's what I can say. It's not a story.
Dropping more knowledge, Bob. We'll take it.
No, but you know, everything I'm saying here is not, you know, I have done this exact thing. You know, the only reason I can say this now is because I have done this. I wish when I was younger, I had somebody who would just say, Costa, you know, you're doing it all wrong. Let's talk.
Right,
you know?
right.
But I didn't have that person. You know, it took me a long time to figure out how the hell to do this thing. You know, and I just really hope that it's going to be understood correctly. And I really do hope that what we talk about here can help somebody, you know, in some way.
Yeah, and it's not corny at all. And it's a cliche thing to say live in the moment and appreciate those moments. But that's the thing that we lack sometimes, is we're always looking ahead, and now we're not looking at what's right in front of us, right? So I do appreciate you being here. Helped my day out tremendously. I'm sure a lot of other people as well.
Oh man, it's been great, Costa. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you guys.
Can you plug your socials? Let people know when the movie's dropping.
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. There's gonna be something announced. I don't know when this is gonna be airing, so I can't really say anything yet.
Right.
But there's an announcement coming.
That's a pro right there.
There's something coming up.
He knows. Yo, be on
knows
the
what's
lookout
up.
for Costa Ronin. If you haven't seen The Americans or Homeland, you need to go watch. He's incredible in it. Yo, Costa, again, thank you for your time. We'll see you next week on The Chaos.
Thanks, brother. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Chaos Control, hosted by Mikey Tableman and Danny J. Gomez, producer and audio engineer Nick Dewar. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us next week for more Chaos.